Guys. Funny thing happened. I share a little story with you folks, and you can get out. We were a little bit ahead of schedule, so I'm going to bloviate a little bit. You know, it's funny how things happen. Sometimes we try a little too hard, and we get in our own way on certain things, and that's where I was last year at this time. My social life can only be described as a train wreck. It was awful. I couldn't stand myself. I really couldn't. I had about given up. I said, I'm going to fill my life with anything that I could, just to take my mind off my problems and, you know, be a good friend to my friends, be a good dad to my kids, and stop worrying about other trivial things. And I did. I just gave up, put it in God's hands, and started marching along. You know, and I was right about where this gentleman's sitting over here last year, and one of the speakers is up here talking, and I'm working my way around the crowd. People are saying hi and shaking hands and whatnot, and I come around the corner over here, and someone, excuse me, and I turn around, and this woman, you know, biggest, most beautiful pair of green eyes that I'd ever seen in my life, was sitting there staring right at me, talking to me. I go, I mean, I just drew a blank. You know, you ever been there where, you know, you're just in a situation and all the background sounds start fading away to almost nothing? Well, it's kind of like that. The speakers and the crowd is all, you know, just started to fade, and I'm looking into these green eyes, and the only thing that's going on in my head is, don't be a dork, don't say something stupid, don't be a dork. And all of a sudden, the crowd goes crazy, snaps me out of it. They're clapping and applauding, and I guess the speaker's off the stage, and this poor woman who was saying something to me, and to this day I really don't even know what she was saying because I was just mesmerized. I'll be right back. I'll be right back. And I run for the stage. I go to do my thing and introduce the next speaker. And this is where my story gets kind of sad. You know, I got through, and, you know, I got real busy. As you see, there's always something to distract me. And the day burned through. Got to the end of the day, and I finally got the last speaker off the stage, shook the last hand, I thought, and I start perusing around here like my dog Fletcher. You see him patrolling around. That was me. I was looking for this green-eyed angel that was talking to me. And I couldn't find her. She was gone. You know, she was nowhere to be found. And I said, oh, I knew it. It was too good to be true. I could go back to my original plan A, and that's just to forget about, you know, that. And, you know, things be as they are. You know, I said I want to be a good friend of my friends, and I used to post out these random invites to come on over to the house for a little Patriot campfire. And it's pretty much an open invitation. Anyone want to come and hang out, hate on the government for a while, burn some wood in my yard? They were welcome to come over. And this woman who I knew online said, oh, I love to go, and I'm kind of stuck here, and I don't think I can get a ride. And I said, well, where are you from? In Holyoke. I said, heck, that ain't too far away. And I said, I'll come right over and pick you up. I did, and I went over and picked her up. She hopped in the car, and we got about a tenth of a mile down the road. And I said, it's amazing, you know, I you know, we've been on each other's friend list for a while and haven't bumped into you in an event or something at some point in time. She said, well, we did. She said, we met at the Second Amendment rally. And I turned around and took a closer look, and there with those green eyes. Holy mackerel, the butterflies immediately started. Oh, I was in trouble. I was in big trouble. So, what echoes through my head, don't be a dork, don't say something stupid. That all came back, you know. You know, one thing led to another. You know, we had a nice time at the campfire, and the next campfire, and you know, we had dinner one night together, and you know, we're hanging around all the time, talking to each other all the time, and damn, my foolish heart started falling in love. Oh man, those butterflies, I still got those butterflies. And I tell you, you got to let go sometimes, and that's what I did. I let go, and one of the greatest things came back to me when I did. When you put those things in God's hands, little miracles do happen. Well, you know, I said one thing led to another, and I just could not get enough of this girl. I wanted to be around her all the time. I loved talking to her on the phone, and that wasn't enough. I was in love big time. I was in hot pursuit. You know, yeah, praise the Lord is right. You know, one thing led to another again, and before you know it, I'm on the phone with one of my friends, Bob, Pastor Bob Card, and I asked him, I said, you know, I had this funny feeling about this girl, and I said, I might need your services, and said I asked him if he might be willing to perform a wedding ceremony. And yeah, he said, yeah, what were you thinking? And I'm judging by the look on the poor guy's face, I think he was expecting me to say, summer, maybe fall or something. And I said, Friday? And he looks back and he says, well, you know, oddly enough, Friday is open. And I said, well, how about the Cross and Berry? He says, yeah, I know where that is. And I said, we'll see you there at 5 o'clock. And he was, and so was Miss Miss Cynthia Palmer at the time, but her name today is Cynthia Kopacz. Come up here. I know I didn't say I was going to say all that either, but I am. So good things do happen at Second Amendment rallies. It got nothing to do with guns. And I say do what you do with love in your heart. I bet you didn't think I meant that. But here she is. I couldn't be happier. And together, we are going to continue the fight. All right? She has in her heart a lot of the same things that I do. And we took that love that we have for each other and the love for our country, and we took it to the next level. I mean, we could have gone wherever, the Grand Canyon, or you know, almost anywhere we wanted to do some honeymooning, but we decided to do a little patriot honeymoon.
That's right.
And at the time,
where was that?
That was in Las Vegas. I didn't play one single hand of poker while we were there. What we did the moment we got off the plane and checked our bags in is we went over to the federal courthouse.
That's right.
That's where I first laid my eyes on the Bundys. All right? And it broke my heart and made the hair stand up on the back of my neck, which is, there's only a very few things that'll make that happen. And it was that Judge Navarro. You could tell you could cut the tension with a knife. That judge was uncomfortable in her own skin. Could not figure out what to do. The corruption, the horrible corruption of the prosecutorial team was oozing out of every orifice. They could not keep a cap on it. She did not know what to do. Those men, those patriots, the first time we laid eyes on them were in prison garb. And I was never so proud of a few human beings in my life as what I saw in those men.
That's the difference between a right and a privilege. you and I to be sitting and watching this,
And
no matter how heartbreaking and how wrong, but I'm telling you, I'm proud of, Cliven, Ammon, Ryan Payne. I'm telling you, I mean, to stand your ground like that, that's what you're supposed to do.
it's unheard of. They are heroes. They are heroes. Yeah, I have no political heroes. People ask me who my political heroes are. I have none. There's no statesman left in our government. I can't find one. The closest we ever came was Dr. Ron Paul. His son is a little bit too watered down for my liking too. Rand is going to stiffen up. He's not his old man. But that's as close as we've come to a statesman in this country in a long time.
Amen.
What has happened in that courtroom is a symptom. They are not the only ones being assaulted and abused. You heard from Susan DeLemus. There's other names. There's other people, warm-blooded human beings that are rotting away in a government cage right now who should be as free as you and I are. And so help me God, we're not going to let them fry. We're going to go there. We sat in that courtroom. We witnessed for ourselves. I sat 2 people away from an FBI informant that was planted in that room. The movement is wrought with them. At the same time, I felt disgust for the system that had gone so totally wrong. You're so honored to be there for the men in those jumpsuits in the front of the room that were shackled.
They were actually wearing their T-shirts, right? Yeah.
They were shackled and shall not.
They were shackled.
They are going to be set free. There's one thing I want to ask you to do. Is please, until we can celebrate together their release, I ask you to go to our site. We're going to publish the addresses of every single one of these political prisoners, and I want you to send them letters and emails. And I mean this. This is your homework assignment, is to contact these people and just tell them that we are thinking about them and we are not going to stop until they are freed.
That's right. Amen. As soldiers for patriotism.
Yep.
You do it for our soldiers, you can do it for soldiers, our patriots.
Yes. You fight for everyone's rights every time.
Because we're patriots.
Now, the second thing we did while we were out there, we spent half our time at the trial, made some great connections. John Lamb, there's people like him. Who's heard of John Lamb out there? All right. Yeah. Keep your prayers going for him. He was in a horrible car accident, but he's doing better.
He's healing.
He's over the hill, and he's going to be out and busy again. He's already from his hospital bed putting out videos. It's people like that we need to celebrate also. That are not going to let this go. Now, the second half of our trip out there, as you know, Jeanette Finicum, she's been a guest of ours twice now. And she's just knocked it out of the park. She made us understand the human beings that are behind this. Well, I myself, I wanted to know firsthand. I wanted to get to know the family better, and I wanted to see the area that so many people were talking about. All right, this rangeland, this desert land, that I am to believe if I take the government story and believe the BLM, these ranchers are out there just destroying the environment without regard. I had to see for myself what is the story. I hold a degree in environmental science, so I'm one of those educated hillbillies. All right, so I thought I might go out there, use the skills that I had developed to see for myself. And here's what I saw. And before I describe it, I want to remind you something that's critically important about rights. For a right to be worth anything, you must claim the right. You must benefit from the right. And you darn well better be ready to defend that right. The 3 elements that are most important and most critical. Well, here's what was happening. And there's a legal term that needs to be understood here is that beneficial use. When the BLM and the government went out there, all right, they went out there with dump trucks and backhoes and things like that. All right, this isn't what you use to herd cattle. Okay, it's not. It's what's used to pick up their carcasses once they've been killed, or run to death in the desert. It's what's used to destroy water infrastructure. Because you see, if the government or the BLM, their surrogates, can go in there and destroy the water resources that were developed and produced in those rangelands, they've interfered with that important cycle, beneficial use. When something is destroyed, you can no longer benefit from it. They were trying to create an important legal break. And of course, who do you think is going to go in and claim these rights afterwards? All right, so once they're not benefited by the person who originally claimed them, I guarantee you it's the BLM and government is going to claim some authority over this. So you look at the actions of what they did out there, it's absolutely abysmal. But I had to see for myself, to get back to the point. I wanted to see. If these ranchers were out destroying the environment without regard, I want to know. I don't want to support something that's wrong or support the bad guy in the game. So I went out there on horseback with Jeanette Finicum and her daughter. Very resilient family, you see. They may have killed the patriarch of that family. That's what I call it. It wasn't just killed. He was murdered. He was murdered. So these two ladies went out into the desert, and I went with them, Cindy went with them, and we saw for ourselves. And as we come up to these areas where the water infrastructure was developed, I saw a mosaic of tracks and footprints. From the large mule deer mixing in with the cattle, birds, to the tiniest little reptiles slithering through the mud and the insects. There was an abundance of life, an abundance of diversity in only those places where the ranchers developed water and brought it into areas that it didn't exist. We have been lied to. I convinced myself of that. I went out there not hoping to find that I was lied to, but seeking the truth. Because like I said, that once you got the truth on your side and the facts on your side, you've got what you need to win. Just whether you got the gusto to bring it out to everybody. So I found out what I wanted. These were decent, hard-working family people that just wanted to mind their own business and raise their families, do their jobs, and hopefully, God willing, have their feet touch the floor again in the morning. We've been lied to. We've been absolutely lied to. The Finicums are still working hard to recover from this. I spoke to her not too long ago. In fact, she was instrumental in putting me in touch with Carol and Cliven Bundy. And she wanted to have me pass on a couple of things to you. Number one, she just wanted to say hi and thank you. She wanted to say thank you to all of you for your support. And she wanted to pass on a little update. The BLM finally let them back on their original rangeland. Originally, they were allowed to go on Lavoie's sister's property on her range as a temporary measure to accommodate their cattle.
Is that where you branded cows?
Yes, I got to actually brand a Lavoie cow, if you can believe that. Talk about checking something off my bucket list. That was awesome. But she had 75 mother head out there. She just got through collecting them all up, and she's got 66 calves. So the Finicum Ranch is coming back. Those ladies are working real hard, and as God is my witness, we're going to be out there again someday, real soon, to help them out. Wrangling cows in the desert.
I held up the rear. It was really awesome.
She only fell once, so what a trooper. Yep.
That's a story.
She told me she was familiar with horses, and we get her out there and get her up on one. I said, well, how much experience do you really have? It's like, I petted one once. What a trooper. Got on a horse all day wrangling cattle in the desert.
I got scraped a lot in the brush.
Yeah, but you lived in.
I did a lot of dodging, and it was fun.
Yep, and you stuck to it.
Yeah, it was
Proud
great.
of you.
I really loved
And
it.
we're going to be out doing it again. These are real family people. They remind me of folks that are near and dear to my heart. And, it's a real honor to be able to help people like that in any way that we can.
That's a good word.
You don't have to necessarily be in the desert wrangling cattle. I mean, we took it to that extreme. But these people are going to enjoy our support in every way possible. We're going to write those letters, make those calls, we're going to bring pressure everywhere pressure is needed to make sure that justice, real justice, is actually served.
Amen.
Amen is right. All right. I'm going to go on in a moment, and I'm going to introduce our speakers here to really fill in the blanks. I'm just giving you a very summarized version of what's going on out there. But before that, I got a couple of quick last-minute announcements. There's some chicken dinners that are going to be left over, and if you'd like to purchase some, you can. Talk to the guys at the grill. The grill over here for the burgers and dogs is closing at 3 o'clock, so if you want something from the grill here, jump on that. And the 50-50 raffle. I hope you've checked this out. It's your chance to get involved there. At 3:15, they're going to be closing that up. So we've got a few closings coming up right around the corner. Get those dinners, get your raffle tickets, and we want to make sure you're all well fed before you go.
Amen.
Now, I know you've all been waiting. When we first mentioned Ammon and Ryan coming out, my phone lit up, my email lit up, Facebook lit up. Everyone was super excited to hear the next chapter of what's going on. Ammon and Ryan send their best. I think we're going to see them out here in the not too distant future. But I got to tell you, we've, we didn't lose anything here. Our efforts to fill in that important void were blessed when both Cliven and Carol Bundy accepted our invitation to come out here. So,
it's a patriarch and a matriarch.
Yes, I really want you to pay attention to what these folks have to say. It is critically important, and above all, let our support for this family, for this movement of property rights, and remember the reason why. These are examples of tyranny that we're bringing to you. All right, the families were literally terrorized, and what the government did can only be described as tyranny. This is not the way a government treats its citizens. So I'd really like to have you all give a very, very warm welcome to Mr. Cliven Bundy and Carol Bundy.
First off, almost everything I was going to say has been said, which is awesome because that makes me realize that everybody is awake, and everybody is starting to be awake. And our message mostly is people need to wake up. People need to teach their children. I see a few children here, but that is kind of our message all along: is where's the youth? They are the hope of our nation. And so where are they? Today, I'm going to take a minute, and if you want to sit down, you can. For 2 years, I was queen of the castle. And I've been demoted. So we'll sit down. Some of you weren't paying attention. First off, I didn't know that. Where did Dave go? I didn't know he could ever be speechless, and here he's saying he's pretty nice, make him speechless. So, what a fun story that was. Most of you know by now that I am the mother of Ammon and Ryan, and they kind of threw us under the bus because they didn't want to fly. And there's a good reason for that, because the TSA does not treat domestic terrorists very well. And we are still, even though all charges have been dropped, we're still on the list. I also want to say, in going with what Susan was saying, you know what, welcome. If there's some FBI people here or some spies of any kind, you know, I'd be outside the courthouse and people would say to me, don't talk to so-and-so, you know, he's an informant, don't talk to so-and-so. And I say, you know what, the truth never changes. Right. My story never changes. I have people driving by to check how many supporters I have, and the more people that are out here, the better. So thank you very much for standing with us. One of my favorite cowboy quotes is, the best preparation for tomorrow is doing your best today. So, with my talk today, let's saddle up, let's ride with spirit, let's ride with strength, and let's ride with conviction, because that is the cowboy way. Now I ask you, a lot of people ask me, how did I make it, how did I do it, where did I get my strength? I want to say, doesn't a wife to a rancher, a stubborn one by the way, a mother to 14 children, I will soon be a grandmother to 70. I got twins coming next month. And a great granny to 4 and 2 on the way. Now, thank you. If America is not going to teach their youth, then I'm going to raise a family that's going to teach America. I'd like to tell you a little bit about my story. First off, I'm excited. I have never been this far away from home. Wow. I've never been to the east at all. The west is my home, and you know what? It is beautiful here. It's green, and there's trees. And it's beautiful. So I want to start at the very beginning. I had ancestors come across on the Mayflower. So they landed not too far from here. And guess what they did when they hit dry land? They did, but before they did that, they got on their knees and they thanked God. They thanked God for being free from a king, to be able to worship how they wanted, and to be able to own land, own a business, own a gun, do whatever they darn well pleased. And they were thankful for that. And then they dug their fingernails down into the dirt and they went to work. And they planted gardens and they became friends with the Indians. And in fact, one of my great, however far back, because I don't know how old I am, I don't remember anymore, actually married one of the Indian princesses. So I guess you could say I'm really a native in a lot of ways here. They planted gardens and homes, and they learned to love their neighbor. This is freedom and liberty continued into the 13 colonies. And I had ancestors who fought in the Revolutionary War. Yep, they carried guns. Then they also became involved in the divinely inspired Constitution, which also gives us our First and Second Amendment rights, which is what we stood on during our protest. But this love for freedom continued. It continued. It became some of the first of the Mormon pioneers. And guess what? That scared a lot of people, this new religion that was growing so fast. And so they were actually chased out across the Missouri River from the very country that they loved, from their homes, from their farms, from their ranches. But guess what they did when they crossed that Missouri River? They were wet, they were tired, and they were a little bit hurt because they were kicked out of their homes. They got on their knees, and once again, they thanked God for freedom. They thanked God that they could have the freedom of religion. They thanked God that they could own their own home and their own land and their own ranch. And they even thanked God for that flag from a country of which they'd just been kicked out of. But then what did they do? They dug their fingers down into the soil and they went to work. Because guess what? There's freedom and liberty literally in their blood. And they went to work. Now I have a great-great-grandmother who, as an early pioneer, remembers waking up as a small child to the clang of cowbells. Most of you might not know what that is, but if you lose your milk cow, it comes in pretty handy. Also the clang of Dutch oven legs saying, "Wake up, it's Independence Day." And she says she can remember watching the lead wagon clear up ahead in the dust, and there was an American flag flying on that. And from that day forward, my grandmother kept a flag of some sort with her till the day she died, with the exception of one time, as her husband had passed away and she was going back home, she planted that flag on his grave as his marker. So you see, we have a lot of liberty and strength in our blood. Now, as the story goes, my husband's family settled in Bunkerville, Nevada, and the Arizona Strip. My family settled in Wyoming. They were poor, they had very little, but they were strong in spirit, and they loved liberty, and they were willing to fight and stand for that liberty. They too were cowboys, and so that's where we come to our way of life. It's a custom, it's a culture, it's what we stand for, it's what we represent. And if you and as it was just said, you have to claim it, you have to use it, you have to defend it. And that's exactly what my family and Cliven's family has done for years. It's the cowboy way. Thank you. So where do we get this spirit other than, and what makes us strong, and where is conviction found, and why would we stand? And Cliven's going to show you some pictures. Why would we stand against an army that was pointing guns at us? And I had a reporter say to me, well, you were pointing guns. And I said, I didn't point a gun at anybody, but I sure had a whole lot of them pointed at me. And I said, there's thousands of pictures on the internet. I told the reporter, you go through, and if you can find us pointing one gun at somebody, you let me know. Because I said the guns that were being pointed was by an overreaching government who we have allowed to have too much power. Now I'm going to tell you a little story that I'm going to veer away from because I don't know why, but I had a midlife crisis a few years ago and I bought me a helicopter on eBay. It was a self-built helicopter, so I was taking my life in my hands, and I did learn to hover it a little bit, but Cliven made me put a big piece of cement on the bottom, because I don't know if he's afraid I was going to fly away or what. Anyway, we put it in the shed and kind of forgot about it. In 2012 was when they decided actually to first come after our ranch, our cattle. And they had Homeland Security, they had FBI, and they had the sheriffs come to our ranch and to our neighbors and to our town and ask a million questions about the Bundys. Because you know what we would say? We'll do whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. And they wanted to know what that meant. And we would say, depends on what you do. We don't know what we're going to do. We're going to stand. We're going to do whatever it takes. Well, they had been there and they thought they knew everything possible about us. And every time they would come and ask Cliven another question, then the sheriff and his deputies and one of the Homeland Security people would say, can we go down and look at your cows and see how they look? And Cliven would walk them down because then they could snoop on the way back. Well, I assume one of the grandkids left the door open to my helicopter shed. Cliven was walking back with the sheriff and they were talking, and pretty soon the sheriff stepped back. He says, you have a helicopter? Cliven said, sure.
Of course we do.
You know how to fly it? Cliven says, well, it's a little dusty. You can see that I haven't flown it for a while. But he says, you ought to see the 50 caliber that I can strap on that. Flown that helicopter, I truly believe that helicopter saved us in 212 from what happened in 214. Because I think they said, we have been on this family, we've been following this family, we've been to their home, we've ate at their dinner table, we've done all this, and we didn't know they had a helicopter. What else do they have that we don't know about? And so I've kind of teased Cliven a little bit because I said, it's time to get the helicopter out because, you know, I'm not getting any younger. And I think we're going to do it. But that comes with spirit, strength, and conviction. We pled with the sheriff in 214. We actually demanded him to do his job, to protect our life, liberty, and property. We got no response, very little response. So we faced down a tyrannical government who, in full military combat uniform, stole our cattle, killed many of them, ran them to death. We'll never know exactly how many, because unlike Jeanette Finicum, we run wild cows. They're kind of hard to catch. Sometimes they haven't even seen a man for years, so they got a little Brahma in them. And I don't know, I'm talking to a lot of people that don't know a lot about cows, because I can tell you I've come this far and I haven't seen one yet. But a Brahma cow is one of the few breeds that sweat. So they thrive on the desert. And they're smart. They can hear a truck and they know if it's your truck or somebody else's truck. They know if you're going to feed them or what you're going to do. If you take their calf, or if you wean their calf away from them in one area, they won't leave their calf there another year. They're a very smart animal. And we've bred a special breed. And so those cows can run a long time. So for them to run them to death, they totally abused the cattle. We had a lot of babies, 43, Cliven, babies that didn't have mamas in the end that we had to bottle feed. But they terrorized my family, they terrorized our neighbors. There was communication equipment just above my house so that they could watch and see who came, who went, and hear everything that was said in our home. There were spies on the hill, we knew, watching my children and my grandchildren as they played in the yard. And they get many verbal and threats. They told my son Ammon at one point, they looked at him and pointed at him and said, "Before this is over, I'm going to kill you." Whoa! Now see, that doesn't come out in court because we're not ones that really tell people that, but that's what we were facing. That is strength, that is courage, that is conviction. We didn't carry a gun. We have guns, we just weren't carrying them. We trusted in God. With strength, with courage, and with conviction that comes from only what you have in your heart. Now today, people want to say, where do you go from here? Well, all that we stood for is still in jeopardy. The cowboy way is still being regulated out of business through terms and conditions and contracts with the BLM. And we've been a little frustrated with Jeanette. Yeah, she got to turn her cows out, but yeah, she signed a contract with the Bureau of Land Management. And that is one of the things that we have stood for, is that they didn't have jurisdiction to come get us because we didn't have a contract with them. We fired them 25 years ago because they were regulating us out of business. I don't know how many of you are business people, business owners, but if you had the federal government come to you, and we heard about an Amish man who's in prison now and said, you know what, next year we figure maybe you need to cut your business in half by 50%, and our rates are going to go up a little bit. So just be prepared. What would you do?
Get my gun out.
Get your gun out. You cannot run a business with the government telling you how to run it, because it just doesn't work. It gives them more power, and we lose our business. So it's a struggle, but I'm going to tell you something. It's worth it, because I have dirt under my fingernails, and I have liberty in my blood that's been passed down for generations.
All right.
And I have a husband that works me really hard too. Now, as I said earlier, we're still on the terrorist watch list, so when it comes time to fly, and I was going to bring my ticket up, but I get 4 S's on. Well, first off, I can't pre-print my ticket, so already I know. So we have to get there. They finally, after standing about an hour to an hour and a half, depending on the airport, they'll print your ticket and it'll have 4 S's on the bottom, which means you're on their terrorist watch list. So, but I choose to look at it because I'm kind of really a positive person. I have to be when you have a family like mine. I choose to look at it as making me special. One of the S's stands for special, doesn't it? Yeah. And I get special escorts. I get a special pat down, a very thorough one, I might add.
Super special.
Super special. and I get special escort to the plane. And then oftentimes I get another special pat down, and then everybody else that's on the flight with me gets treated special too, because they have to show their license one final time, and they're all a little upset. But you know, I will do whatever it takes for the freedom of this country. If it means I have to go to the airport 2 hours early, and if it means I have to have that special treatment, by dang, I'm going to do it. Because I am not going to let them win. We are the people. We are America. I had pilgrims that came here for freedom, and we shouldn't go backwards.
No.
We shouldn't allow that. We shouldn't let that. And there's things we can do.
Get a special husband.
I have a very special husband. That's why I have the S's on my thing. And he's strong and he's full of conviction and strength. I have a son. My son Mel said he didn't stand so my children wouldn't have to. I stood so my children would know how. And I want to say that when this went down in 2014, and they had their little First Amendment area, and then people started seeing what was going on, the first people to call, the first people to come, and the first people to arrive were not my neighbors that lived down the road, but it was people like you from this East Coast. In fact, over 50% of the people that came and stood with us came from right around here. Thank you. Thank you very much. So now what do we do today? That's the next question everybody asks. What do we do today? Well, that's a good question because, like I say, I'm just an arm here. In fact, he told me the other day he's the boss. So, that's fine. I just sort of I learned to keep my mouth shut and not think that he is, and then we get along great. So, we have a decision, and our decision is, do we forgive and forget and hold the feds accountable? Or do we let God do that and go on with our life? We've considered filing a suit against our state officials because our state officials are the ones that should have protected our life, liberty, and property, and they failed to do that. We have a sheriff who was we just had our primaries. Our sheriff perjured himself 3 times on the stand during the trials, and he was just reelected in the primary. And so, we might need to deal with him a little bit. We haven't decided. My husband and sons were in jail for 700 days. Their families suffered greatly. I tried to do what I could do. I had a son that was 16 at the time, 17, when his dad was arrested. And he stayed and helped me on the farm. In fact, he stayed and did the farm. I was just the boss. Bosses don't work, do they? Anyway, he is now serving a mission for our church in Chile. Thank you. When he went, you feel, I don't know if you guys understand, but you fill out papers and say you want to go on a mission, and then they look, and one of the questions it asks is there something that we should know about your family, and he just said, well, I want to go teach our gospel somewhere where I'm not known for my name, where I'm known for God.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And when he got to Chile, he said, Mom, and I just did an email because I don't get to physically talk to him, he said, the people of Chile love the Bundys. And yes, they know who you are. I've had people from Russia, people from England, people from Italy, all over the world that have called or stopped by to say we support you. And America is still, in our eyes, the freest country in the world. And what is going to happen? And so when she did drop the charges, the world celebrated with us, and we were so grateful for that. With spirit, with strength and conviction, everything is going to fall into place. I don't know how, I don't know when, but I do know one thing: God knows. And I have left it in His hands to guide us and to tell us where to go, because He was with us, and He still is. We did not look left or right, step forward or backward until we had prayer. And for those of you that went to court, I don't know if you knew, but every day before we went in that courtroom, we met in the corner and we had a prayer. And we prayed that judge might be a little confused as to what she should do. And we prayed that the truth would come out, because the truth never changes. And it did in the end. It did. Peter Marshall said, "We may think of freedom not as a right to do as we please, but as the opportunity to do what is right." And you know, that is not a privilege, that is a right. And our freedom is worth doing whatever it takes to keep it. We need to do whatever it takes to keep those guns, to keep a militia. That's part of our God-given rights. No, and like we said earlier, I've never seen a gun go off and hurt anybody. It's the person behind the gun. So we need to remember that. I've always tried to endure with dignity. That's what people say, "How are you doing?" I say, I'm trying to endure with dignity, and I hope that I did. I hope that I was an example of strength, because that was my goal. And it wasn't only that for the people that were watching, but it was for my family. I have a large family, and they looked to me for strength. They looked for me to courage. They wanted to know what would happen next. So I tried to be that strong woman, and hopefully I was. Another cowboy quote that I have, it says, "You may get knocked down on the outside, but the key to living in victory is to learn how to get up on the inside." My desire as a rancher's wife is to endure with dignity and strength, and to those who know me, to say that she was unstoppable, not because she did not have failure or doubts, but because she continued on in spite of them. Don't let anybody break your soul. We're all here for the same purpose. We're all here for the same reason. We are here to save and preserve the Constitution of the United States. And we need to vote in people and elect people who are willing to have that same strength and conviction to do that. That is another right that we have. It's not a privilege to vote. It's a right to vote, and we need to be there in numbers to vote. There's much work to do. We need to educate. They've got camps, they've got books. We need to teach the proper form of government, because our youth do not know the proper form of government, and the bulk of us do not know the proper form of government. Sheriff Mack was just talking about, how important it is to have a good sheriff. And I know that sometimes we live in states like these on the East Coast, and Nevada's not far from it, where there's so many people that don't understand the power that they have in that vote. They look to their elected officials to save them, and that is wrong. Their elected officials are only to protect their life, liberty, and property. It's up to us to stand and do the right thing. So once again, using my cowboy language, let's saddle up and ride, cowboy. Let's get her done. Let's get her done using spirit, strength, and conviction. Thank you.
No, it's all right.
Thanks, Laura.
My wife still telling me how to do this, you know. I want to.
No longer queen of cats.
I want to thank you people so very much in my heart for being you. And as my wife said, at the Bundy protest, I met, say, 2,000 people, and over half of those people come further away than the Mississippi River.
Wow.
They were from the east, and I thank you for coming and supporting.
Amen.
Today I've listened to some great speakers, and I've haven't totally confused my mind, but I'm sure happy for the things that you have learned today, and I don't really want to try to repeat these things. One little story keeps coming up in my mind, and it has nothing to do with most everything here, but you know, I said I want to come and show how the Second Amendment affected the Bundys. And my whole speech is to be about the Second Amendment. Well, you know, we talk a lot about the right to bear arms. I want to tell you a little story about rights to bear arms. I had a friend. He was actually a mechanic. He worked on a farm and construction equipment for me a few times, and he told me this story. He said, I had my wife and 3 little kids, and Nevada's a big world, and he was about 200 miles away from where I live, up by Pioche, Nevada. They're not trees like this. There's like 2 trees, and a little spring come up in that tree, sort of like a roadside rest. And he said, I had my wife and family, and there's a little table there, and he said, we had our picnic spread out on this table along the highway. And he said a car come up and pulled up along the side of them, and it had 3 big guys in it, he said. And he said they just sort of looked us over and didn't really do anything, and they pulled down the road a little ways, and then they come back. And he said, when they come back, they just got out and started to grabbing the food, and they, you know, he didn't know what they were going to do. They just taken over their camp, and he said he had a wife and a young daughter there, and a couple of little boys, and he said, I didn't know what was going to happen. But he said when they went down the road, and then they come back, he said, I had a feeling. And he said, I went and took my pistol out from under the seat of the car. He said, I just had it sitting underneath my leg. And he says, when they come back and they started to get rough with me, he says, I just pulled that pistol out. And he said they got back in their car and left. But what would have happened if he didn't have that gun with him? Out in the desert, many miles away from everybody, and here he was in trouble. I just want to leave that thought with you. How important is our Second Amendment?
Right.
The right to bear arms.
Right.
Now I want to go into another phrase of the Second Amendment. The militia. I want to show you a little thing here on a film. I can't see what it is. Oh, I can here now on this. This is a sign that's in front of the Bundy Ranch, and of course you might have seen it a lot of times. Usually we got some flags. But click it. Okay. Has the West been won, or has the battle, or has the fight just begun? This picture this banner was built many years ago. In fact, it was built and marched down the streets of Las Vegas, I don't know, 30 years ago. The question was, has the West been won, or has the fight just begun? We marched this down in the street of Las Vegas around the courthouse at the Wayne Hage, very first hearing of Wayne Hage. And so this thing has this banner has been with me for 30 years. The question has never been answered. Has the West been won? Okay, these pictures here are just some pictures of my ranch. I want to, I could smell, it wasn't the onions I could smell the beef cooking over here. I want to tell you what I do. Cliven Bundy at the Bundy Ranch. What I do is I convert the desert of plants. In other words, the trees and the brush. And the trees don't grow 30, 40 foot high where I live. The bushes are maybe 1.5 foot high. But let me tell you something. That is feed. That is a renewable resource that belongs to man. And what I do is I convert that renewable resource, that grass and that mostly brush, and I convert that into edible commodity. Red meat, hamburger. It's for dinner. It's good, and that's what I do. These are just some more pictures of the ranch. Here's some cattle on the ranch. Keep going. Here's some more cattle. I always like this picture. It's sort of a mystic picture. I've got some sons up there with cattle, and they're moving them in the dust. I don't know. It's just a nice picture of cattle on the Bundy Ranch. This here is why many of you people come to the Bundy Ranch. First Amendment zone. My daughter Stetsy, the very first confrontation with a BLM or the government was my daughter. She's, 18, 19 years old. She's just married. And the government, she was parking along the side of the road, and the government, BLM, Bureau of Land Management, it's not Black Lives Matter, it's Bureau of Land Management. And I do agree with Black Lives Matter. All of our lives matter. And I don't want you to make sure you understand that. But my daughter, she said, my First Amendment is wherever I am. And the officers, or whatever you want to call it, BLM, Bureau of Land Management, people said, your First Amendment, we have provided you a place to exercise your First Amendment. And I called them pig pens. They did provide 2 pens. One was over by the freeway, which was from this area probably 5 or 6 miles away. There was another up by the town of Mesquite. And what they were fenced off areas with plastic fencing around it. They didn't have even a gate in it, but they had the First Amendment zone area sign on it. And the government was telling we the people and the media, if you have any complaints, you've got to go and get in that First Amendment area. And then they had time limits where you could only be in one area at a time. And my daughter said, my First Amendment rights is anywhere I stand here in America. And so she made really the shot that was fired around the world. My daughter fired that shot. And then other things happened. This is my son Dave. We don't have a picture of him actually where the government has thrown him down. Maybe we do, but anyway, this is him after they got through roughing him up. And let me tell you what my son told me. I don't want to be long here, but I want to give you a little background on my son. My son was, when he was little, he was like a little bear. And he loved his dad. And he went with me everywhere I went. If I got on a piece of equipment, he would climb on and I'd tuck him down between my arms and hold him on the equipment. If I was on a horse, he'd get on the back of my horse and put his little fingers in my Levi belt loops and hang on. And I've seen him hang on to the point that the skin come off his little fingers, and he still wouldn't give up. He always wanted to be with his dad. And so on this day, which was like a Wednesday or something before the protest on Saturday, my son he had been in construction business. We had a housing boom left. And he had educated himself that he was going to be an airplane pilot, a jet, for flying commercial airplanes. He had got a college education. He had passed all of his tests, and he was basically qualified to be a trainer of airline pilots of heavy jets. But he didn't have enough hours to do the flying. He had to get more hours, jet time. So he was on the way to Laughlin, Nevada to take a new job on and to fly for Grand Canyon Airlines for scenic tours. Well, he knew it was his mother's birthday, and he'd stopped off in either St. George, Utah or Mesquite, Nevada, and bought a bouquet of roses. And it really, I get mad when I tell a story. But my son, in his little good heart, he stopped by the ranch to give his mother flowers. And when he stopped off, he finds out that the BLM has started taking over, and they're going to they're gathering their cows. And so, in curiosity, he drives up and wants to see what they're doing on the highway. And they take and beat him to the ground. I don't know if you've probably seen. They ground gravel in his face, and they put him in a car, and they take him over where they're collecting the cattle, and they treat him like a trophy buck or deer. They walk around and talk about him, sort of harassing, and then they take him to Las Vegas and put him in jail and keep him overnight. And let me tell you, this picture is taken after. Dave, he said, Dad, he said, I thought my life was over. He said, I figured that it was going to kill me. And he said, I was to that point, and he said, then something happened. He said, they come and threw me a sack lunch, took my handcuffs and shackles off, and opened the door and kicked me out on Las Vegas Boulevard. And I got a phone. Then he had a credit card in his pocket. Didn't have no money, but he traded his for a tank of gas so a lady could let him use his phone. And he called me, and this is what I found when I got back, when I went to pick him up. This was a picture of his abuse. And this is our government treating my son that way. So people, not only the First Amendment thing now we have a son that's been beat up along the highway for no reason at all. This is another reason people come. This down in the blue is my sister. She's just barely getting over throat cancer. She'd been having trouble for, 4 or 5 years, just about dead. And here she is, basically trying to defend her family's ranch and be part of the protest. And they literally grab her and throw her to the ground. And when people seen this, it infuriated them, and they were people coming from the east for this purpose. Yeah, and to give you an idea, some of the control, remember, you see these actions coming, and guess what we do? We call 911 for help. And guess what happens? 911 don't respond to us. They actually say, it's a BLM problem. So in other words, when we had emergency, our county and our local government wouldn't even send emergency help. This is another instance that happened right after Margaret was shot down. My son Ammon was infuriated. They just threw his aunt to the ground. And so what does he do? He goes into defense. And what do? They sick their dogs on him and taser him. They taser him 3 times. And he's still strong enough man that he stood and kicked their dogs off. And basically what happens now is we the people come and gather around and basically run the Bureau of Land Management, supposed officers down the road. And so now this has happened about, 3 or 4 days before April the 12th, 2014. And and so people starts coming. And like I said, they come from all parts of the nations. I had people coming from this area here. I had people coming from Florida. There was people coming out of Canada and Alaska. And when they came, I would say, well, why are you here? And not every one of them said, I don't know why we're here. I just felt like that I had to come. And so they come because they were sort of spiritually moved. Was any of you people, were you there? Did you come? Anybody that were here come to Bundy Ranch? Okay, one of you. Okay. You know, I could ask, why did you come? But let me tell you something. They all come because they felt some spiritual draw. And what was we doing at the Bundy Ranch on April 14th? You know, the media says we were Bundy armed standoff, that we went to assault our federal officers. That's what the media will tell you. No, that's not what happened at all. We were protesting our county sheriff. Why was we protesting our county sheriff? I believe the federal government don't have no jurisdiction authority over my ranch or my cattle or my life in my county, Clark County, Nevada. So who should I be protesting to, regression to, or it wouldn't be the federal government, it would have to be my local sheriff. So I'm going to my local sheriff, I'm going to my county commissioners, I'm going to my state representative, I'm going to my state brand inspector, livestock brand inspector. Why am I going to those people? Because they have sworn to the oath to uphold the Constitution and the state law. And they are to protect my life, liberty, and property. And so I'm not protesting the federal government at all. I can't even hardly be mad at the federal government. I have to be mad at those that won't do their duty. You know, today, my wife mentioned a little bit, when I come out of the jail, they asked me, what are you going to do now? Or what's your next step? I said, I don't know what my next step is. I've either got to forgive and forget, or I'm going to hold accountable all of those aiders and abettors. Okay, we've had much abuse. We've had cattle get killed. I've just got through spending 700 days in jail. And who am I going to hold accountable? Well, you know, I told them I didn't know at that time, and 4 months has passed, and I still really don't know. The one thing I do know is if I'm going to hold anybody accountable, I'm going to have to hold my local elected officials accountable.
Right.
They're the ones that I elected, and they're the ones I pay to protect my life, liberty, and property. I know that's a little bit hard to understand. Why aren't you mad at the federal government? Well, where do I begin? Am I supposed to be mad at President Trump, Secretary Sessions, down the line? I mean, just who am I going to try to get some hide off from? And am I going to spend the rest of my life trying to get some hide off somebody that I probably can't get it done anyway? If I can, I'm surely not going to get paid. Everybody, so how are we going to hold them accountable? I don't know, but I do know one thing. It's so very important that we have elected sheriff. One that we nominate and one we elect and one we pay to protect our life, liberty, and property. We've got state officials that need to be uphold their oath. And our county commissioners have got to uphold their oaths. So when I look at this election that's coming up, where am I looking? I'm really not looking at our federal, Harry Reid, for example, and he's been out. But let me tell you something about Dirty Harry. I say Dirty Harry. This is when he was a senator in the United States Senate, but he was also the chairman or House of the Senate, majority leader of the Senate. And so here's what Cliven Bundy would tell Harry. I'd say, Harry, we in Nevada elected you to represent Nevada. We the people elected you. Now, for hell's sake, get back there to Washington, D.C. and do your job. Okay, and if you don't have nothing to do here in Nevada, your job is back there. We elect you to go back and take care of some business back in Washington, D.C. Now, Harry, if you want to come back to Nevada, we might let you tell us what color to paint the post office wall. Now think of what I'm saying. I'm saying Harry Reid, you don't have no jurisdiction authority in Nevada. That's not what we elected you to do to manage our land or anything. We elected you to do something else, so get back there and do it.
Exactly.
And that's really how I think. Now the ones that we elect to do those kind of things, let's talk about somebody like the Nevada State Brand Inspector. He's not elected, but I did elect the governor of the state of Nevada, and he's appointed that man to be over the livestock identification part of it. And what's their job? Their job is to make sure my cattle don't get stole. That's the only job he has. And here he is, aiding and abetting with the federal government, stealing my cows, signing brand inspections, signing ownership documents, actually turning the ownership of my cattle from Cliven Bundy to United States government. Then he signs a brand certificate. Well, is this guy accountable, or should I hold this guy accountable, or what should I do? I mean, he's the one who was stealing my cows. Let me tell you something about these local elected officials. You know, if the county sheriff said no, and I think Sheriff Mack actually said this, if the county sheriff says no to the federal government, you know what I believe will happen? I believe that the federal government will bow to that county sheriff. I believe if our governor said no to that federal government, that they would bow to the state governor. And I believe if that brand inspector said no to the government, the federal government, that they would never gathered my cattle, they would never stole my cattle, they'd never come and killed my cattle. They would have never abused my family and my neighbors and my friends. And you people wouldn't have had to come. Let's move on. This is a picture of what Ammon gets tased, and why is he getting tased? He wants to look in that dump truck to see what's in that dump truck. Do you remember Margaret has just been through the ground? That upsets him. But the main reason the people are there, we the people are there, and my son Ammon, is they want to see what's in that dump truck. There's a dump truck with a backhoe on a trailer behind the dump truck, and I think there's 13 cars, BLM vehicles, with armed guards in it. So why are they guarding this dump truck going down the desert road? These patriots are sort of interested in what's happening. Well, they think that they might be dead cattle in there. But what they actually found is my dead water tanks, dead water lines. It tore out the infrastructure that gives life to the desert. And they had them in this dump truck. And so that's one of the things we found out. So, okay. Now I want to talk, this is what I want to talk to you about. The militia. Who are these people? You see Cliven Bundy and you see these men around me. These men are the militia that came to protect Cliven Bundy and his family. And this is a good example of what they did. They walked beside me, they lived beside me, they guarded me, not only for this day, but for months. And what were they guarding me against? They was guarding me against the tyrannical government. They wasn't guarding me against my neighbors or any kind of thief or bad guys. They was actually guarding me against my own government, my federal government. And this is a picture. You got another picture of them there? Here's a picture of Sheriff Gillespie on the stand. I'm on the stand, but look who's standing in front of me. do you realize what this is telling the government? They're telling the government, remember, I don't know whether you remember this, but I was known for the last man standing. Last man standing, I was standing here, and I can't say that no more. I'll never be the last man standing again, and I never will be the man that stood alone. Because why? Malaysia was there, and they stood with me. I've heard my son Ryan, and I've also heard my son Ammon in speeches, and even in court. I see my son, must have been Ryan, in court. He defended himself in court, and before the jury, he turned around and pointed at Ryan Payne, which was in the courtroom with us as a defendant. He turned around and pointed his arm at Ryan Payne, and he said, "This man saved my life." And what is he talking about? Malaysia. You guys saved his life. He said, "This man saved my life." And I think we got to stop and think about that. In America, I don't think they're going to take your guns away from you. That Second Amendment right. They're going to make a lot of noise and everything, but they're not going to take those guns away from you. But are they going to take this away from you, the protection of militia? That's what Cliven Bundy has got as a theme today to talk to you about. Are they going to take this militia? Are they going to whip this militia? They are trying so hard to whip this militia that these guys won't have guts enough to come and stand again with Bundy. They want Bundy to stand alone. They're going to come and whip him real easy. But they're not sure whether militia's going to be there. And you know, Cliven Bundy's not sure either. And they've really worked on the militia. They've put, I don't know, they put a bunch of them in jail. They have scared them to the point that they pled. And when they pled, they created a lie that how do you overcome that? And we have the Oregon example. You know, my sons went to Oregon to help Dwight and Steve Hammond. They don't have a penny's interest in that, or they don't have any investment in that or anything. They've seen a neighbor rancher, which was, I don't know, 500 or 600 miles away, that was in trouble. And they had seen their dad and the Bundy Ranch in trouble. They knew what kind of trouble it was in. And when they went to try to help the Hammonds, the first thing my son Hammond did was he tried to get the local government to, we want to review this court decision. Hammonds are going to jail for 5 years for burning their own grass. And this court system has convicted them, and the Ninth Circuit has even upheld their conviction, and now they're going to jail for 5 years. And my son just couldn't stand the thoughts of that. So we went and tried to get a review of this court procedure. He tried at the county level, he tried at the state level, he tried at the federal level. And then they have a protest march. I think it's on January, it's supposed to happen. They're supposed to go back to jail on January the 2nd, and I think it's like New Year's Day or something. They have this rally, and they march, and people show up. Remember, it's sub-zero weather up there. And then when they get done, what have they done? They've had a nice protest. They've tried to regress their governments. And they have a big protest, and they haven't accomplished nothing. The Hammonds are still going to jail day after tomorrow. And so that's when they take over this Maori refuge. And what do? They're in a protest. We got to do something. What are we going to do? So this is what they decided to do. Well, here's the problem. When they did this, they figured that hundreds of militia would come and back them up and support them. But there were a few militia come, But most of the militia come and stood off the side and allowed this whole thing to happen. Allowed Lavoie to get killed. Well, now we're to the point I'm saying, is the militia done? Are we done? Or in America, is that a thing of the past?
No.
Are we going to strengthen it and make it to where? So my question before you here is not about our Second Amendment right to carry. My really concern is the militia. What are we going to do about the militia? Are we going to strengthen it? Is it going to be part of America? Is it going to be part of our Constitution? 4 times in the United States Constitution, militia is mentioned. It is important. It was important to our founding fathers. You can see the example of how important it was to Bundy Ranch, and it could be important to America in many, many ways in the future. But is it going to die? Are we all going to have fear? Are we going to? I don't know. That's a question you people have to ask. And if I'm going to come to a Second Amendment rally, I'm going to pay attention to the first sentence of the Second Amendment.
Right.
You know, my wife gave a very good speech here and expressed a lot of things. I just want to express my thanks to you people. Now, I spent 700 days as a political prisoner of the United States government. And I don't think that that's right at all. But I'm not the only one that spent 700 days. You know, I had 4 sons, and there was 19 of us all together. And let me tell you something. I was just fine. I felt like that, hey, I've had 30 years of fighting with the federal government. I knew that if I got arrested, that there was no freedom for me. They was basically wanting to either shoot me in the head or put me away in jail for the rest of my life. I knew that. But do you have any idea how it is to be with, say, 18 other young men that's got families and little kids at home and wives? Do you know how much miserable and suffering our federal government, put those men through, and their wives and their families? You know, it can't be explained. We were able to have the blessings of our Heavenly Father, and let me tell you why we had the blessings of our Heavenly Father. It was because of your prayers. Amen. And your thoughts and your sacrifices. We were blessed. I was blessed every day. Every one of those 700 days, I was able to feel the Spirit of the Lord a little bit somewhere along the day. It made it to where I was able to get through that time. And I'll tell you, I'm just as strong today as I was when I went 2 years ago or 4 years ago. I have more faith in my Heavenly Father. I recognize His blessings more than ever. And I'll tell you, we do have a Heavenly Father that loves all of us. I don't know really what more to say. I've come a long ways to be here. I've never been in the East. I recognize this area as being where our founding fathers first made their stand. And let me tell you something about the Constitution. I believe the Constitution is an inspired document. And I believe the Constitution is a blueprint for this government and any other government in the world. I have spent the proper form that the Constitution lays out for a government will work anywhere in this world. And this world really does need that. I mean, it's local government. It's not central government. I want to express another thing. It's been expressed here today somewhat. But you know, our founding fathers fought against the greatest army in the world. And they won. But let me stop and let you think about something. We're down the line 200 years from the time my wife talks about her pilgrim fathers coming here. 200 years down American history, and we still don't have our freedoms and liberty. 200 years. It's only been about 250 years since we got the Constitution. So we went without the Constitution for as long as we've had it. Now, one thing that our founding fathers was sure they didn't want. They did not want a central government. They had just got through whipping the strongest government in the world. They no longer wanted a central government. And they wrote a constitution where we wouldn't have a central government. And what have we allowed to happen today? We have a central government that has unlimited power, at least thinks they do, and then we have a society that turns to the federal government from cradle to death. You know, what are we going to do about that? We have an inspired document that says that that's not the way we're supposed to be. We're not supposed to live that way. We're not supposed to be teaching our children that way. You know, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. I pledge so much that people said, well, you don't believe in the government. Well, yes, I do. I pledge allegiance to the government. But I pledge allegiance to the Republic form of government. Isn't that what we pledge allegiance to? So if we have a flagpole here, and we got our American flag on top, and I know that's proper and it's beautiful up there. But when we stop to think about the proper form of government, which flag really should be on top that represents we the people that are state? But there's another flag we should have. Christian flag? What other flag should be flying up there? On top, really. And wouldn't it be our county flag? Isn't that where we get to represent we the people, represents our republic form of government? We the people get to nominate and vote for our county commissioners. We the people, that's our republic form of government exercise. We the people get to nominate and elect our county sheriff. And we pay our county sheriff to do what? One thing. Protect us. Protect our life, liberty, and property. And so, when we talk about allegiance, we really need to start to think about our allegiance needs to be come back at home. Government closest to we the people. That's what our founding fathers intended. They didn't intend a big national central government. No, they intended for us to have local government where we the people had a vote. And we the people had representatives. And let me bring that a little closer to home. You know, we have a big United States that's beautiful, and we know that the federal government, our Constitution gives the government some jobs to do, like protect our borders, gives our government some things to do, like weights and measurements, for example. You know, we can't have a foot be in one place in Nevada and another foot be, you know, so that's something that the central government should have something to do with. But that's about the limit. That's about where it should stop. Our 10th Amendment, what does it say? You know, that everything that the Constitution hasn't given to the government to do, it's back to we the states and we the people. So our founding fathers didn't have any intent that we'd have a central government with all this power. Now, I want to. Okay, this is a picture of prior. I'm about done through here. I just want to make sure. This is a picture of Metro. This is by county sheriff. When we the people went up to the area where the cattle were being krailed, what did we? I don't want to go into a big long story here, but let me tell you something. The night before the 12th of April, I had word that the BLM was leaving. The county sheriff on the 9:30 in the morning come and told me the BLM was gone. well, about 7:30 in the morning told me the BLM was gone. At 9:30 we met with the county sheriff on below these flags. We never said one thing about cattle. We never said one thing about BLM or anything like that. But we the people had one thing in mind. And what did we have in mind? We was protesting the sheriff. What was we telling the sheriff to do? We told the sheriff to do what? Does anybody know?
Disarm the BLM agents.
Yeah, say that loud.
Disarm the federal agents and put the guns at the pole.
Yeah, that's what we said. We the people said that. And why would we say disarm the federal government? You know, why don't you make it clear? I'm not saying disarm them, those agents or whoever they are as individual. They're just welcome to carry guns and exercise their First Amendment right. But let me tell you something. Those people as federal officers, if they kind of call themselves federal officers, I call them the federal goons. They have no right to point those guns at we the people, and we haven't even had them pointed at us except to the snipers. And what the people said is disarm them. Well, if the county sheriff would have did what the people said, would we ever had to face this army, a federal army? No, we wouldn't have had to face them. And that's what we the people asked, disarm them. And they didn't do it. Okay, now here's, I want you to look at this picture real close. You see this picture a lot of times on the media, and you see there's 3 or 4 cars up here in front, and you see, a half a dozen men around there, and they have guns and all of that. That's all you ever see on the media. But I want you to look really close. Look up the voice. This is like looking up a voice. Start seeing all the cars there. I counted on one photo, I counted 57 government vehicles. All 57 of those government vehicles had armed men in it, more than one. They all was pointing their guns at we the people. Not just 1 or 2 down here. All of these people were pointing their guns at us. And so I'm saying there's 200 people pointing their guns at we the people. Now, if you want to go back, go a little bit further. Yeah, I don't know. See if you can go ahead. I'm not sure. These are all American government. Look how they look. Look what they're doing. Now go a little more. Now I want you to show this. This is what we look like on the other side of the fence.
Yeah.
Is anybody you see any arms? I mean, there's.
No.
Okay. We didn't have we wasn't pointing our guns out at them. They were pointing their guns at us. So the media says Bundy come with armed standoff against the federal government. No, we didn't. We come protest the county sheriff, and the federal government's pointing their guns at us. I don't know. Let's keep it going through there. Let's just sort of. Okay. Anyway, this is what we the people look like on the we the people side of the fence. You see what the government looked like on their side of the fence. Does that look like our federal government? Is that the way there's? So anyway, I guess we get to a point of a question and answer. We can ask any question. I want to answer one question. I want one person to ask me a question. Anybody got a question? Okay.
I watched most of it, and I already talked to you. My heart just breaks at what happened, and that our government can do that. But what would you personally have done different? Not, the government rights, but what would you personally have done different, if anything?
Okay, she asked, what would I personally done different? And let me tell you something. This is a little bit personal, and I don't really like to share this too much. But my wife did share it somewhat. Each day, and let's say each night when I went to bed, I had no idea what I was going to do tomorrow. I had no plan. I had no idea what I was going to do tomorrow. But I did have faith that the Lord would guide me. And when I got up in the morning, I'd pray, and I still didn't know what I was going to do. And then as the day started, like when I was going forth up there, you see the militia escorting me towards the, up to talk to the sheriff. All of a sudden, I had something come in my mind, like disarm the BLM. So when you say what difference would you do, I wouldn't do nothing different. I had the guidance I needed, and I tried to follow it. And these are the cowboys that were under the bridge, and they met up with We the People. We the People knelt down on their knees and prayed, and you see these cowboys praying. So what we did there was all under the direction of prayer, I guess, and we did feel the Lord's Spirit. I think anybody that was there witnessed that Spirit being there. Turn to the last one on that page. I want the one with the last one. Okay, that one there. What does this say? It says the West has now been won. Remember, has the West been won, or has the fight just begun? When we got done with this this protest, we put this sign up. My son and Ryan put this sign up. In other words, as far as we're concerned, and the West has been won. Now the government wasn't willing to give up now, so they arrested us and put us in jail. But what did they do when they arrested and put us in jail? As soon as we never got one witness before the jury, but by using their own witnesses, we got 2.5 witnesses to get up, and they basically was ready to give up. And the federal government did give up, just like they give up here. I need to finish this story, but I guess I better finish it. But the federal government did give up. They dismissed it and dropped all charges. Now, whether it's all over with, maybe not. But what I'm saying, and I said this when I came out of the jail, the BLM, Bureau of Land Management, or the federal government, has set their last fire. We're not going to put up with that no more.
Right.
I couldn't find the right picture, but when the BLM left, they were basically mandated by We the People, and we gave them 1 hour to leave. And when they had 1 hour to leave, and this was not We the People actually saying this, our county sheriff finally, one of his deputies finally stepped up, named Tom Roberts, and he stepped up and got between BLM and We the People, and he told BLM that they had 1 hour to leave. And they did leave, and there was 107 vehicles went on the freeway and left. And this 107 vehicles, I estimated, had at least 200 armed, I don't know what you call them. They can't call them officers, they can't call them police. I could call them goons. But they had 200 of them, 207 vehicles left, and there was 10 vehicles went up the wash, so there's 217 vehicles left that compound. This was after the FBI had left and after the contract cowboys had left. And so that's how many government people with arms were at the... And so I asked a question. I asked this to militia. Where in the heck did those 200 plus armed army, where did they go? Where are they today? Who are they harassing today? Who are they running out of business? Whose cattle are they killing? Whose rights are they taking away? Don't get me mad, but I am a little bit mad about the media. They never showed those 200 people with their arms going up the road. The city of Mesquite harbored them, housed them, harbored them. What's wrong with our governments? What's wrong with our local governments? If there's a foreign government come in with their army, wouldn't we do something about it? And here we have a government army within ourselves. And let me tell you, this, not only BLM and Park Service, but Indian Affairs, Homeland Security, FBI, on and on and on. They all have an army. God bless us, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mr. and Mrs. Bundy. Now, there should be no doubt. You hear stories like this, the sad part is if you really research this and dig into it, you'll realize that in their county, this became news when they were the last ranching family there. They're 53, and they're all gone. So these stories they're not unique, they're actually familiar. They're stories that just don't make it to our ears. So thank you very, very much, Cliven, Carol. Thank you for all that you do, not just today, but what you've done every day. Thank you very, very much.
Did anybody ever apologize to you and your family?
Oh boy. Here's a lady, every time I go somewhere and she's there in an event, she don't let me get too far, and I see this big smiling face looking at me, and I give my hug, and all is better. Here's a couple of folks that they're in the game. They wear their heart on their sleeve, and we just love them to pieces. They do a lot for us, and they support the event every single year. So thank you and congratulations, Bobby and Peter.
I have to run because I have to play music gig. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Peter, I don't know how you did it.